Hi, I'm Jeff Brown, President and CEO of the Illinois CPA Society, and I'm excited today to be joined by this year's AICPA Chair, Okorie Ramsey, CPA, CGMA. Welcome, Okorie.
Thank you, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
To help us get to know you better, can you please share a little about yourself, your professional journey, and some of the mentors who have guided you along the way through your career?
Sure, Jeff. And if I forget any three of those three, please, give me a little grace.
Yeah, that was a long question.
Yeah. but to start with, so I'm born and raised in Berkeley, California. So I grew up in the Bay Area. I went to Berkeley schools from grade school to high school. Went to college at San Francisco State University and majored in accounting. And so I knew I was going to go into accounting because I spent the last 2 years of my high school in an accounting seminar class that literally for the last 4 semesters, I was learning how to create a general ledger or how to balance a checkbook and how to maintain business records. Because in this course, I owned my own business. And so I knew going into college that was going to be my major, and I really never looked back. Now, while I was at San Francisco State, I got involved in organizations like the National Association of Black Accountants, which is NABA, also Beta Alpha Psi, and then the Accounting Students Organization. So I was very familiar with what it meant to be an accountant going into the profession. Along those years, I also had mentors, in that space as well. So Gwen Skillern is one who literally has been with me since I was probably 16 years old. And it's just been great to have people who have been through your journey with you. But Ralph Grant, who is actually a longtime NAB member who's now passed away, Tom Williams, Tommy Williams, actually out of Chicago, is someone who I count on as a mentor as well. So I've just had a great history of mentors within my career path, but those who have kind of followed me along the way. Now, in terms of professionally, once I graduated from college, I joined the Coopers & Lybrand. And so I was with Coopers & Lybrand for about 5 years between San Francisco and Chicago, actually, because I lived here for a few years. And I decided that at one point that I didn't want to work for the merged firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers because of just my own experiences, but I think it's an amazing firm. But I ultimately decided, okay, I'm going to go into business industry after a couple of years of being in both the public accounting space, and then I went into industry for a few years. But I spent about 15 years in total between Coopers & Lybrand, Anderson, and then EY. And I found my home with Kaiser Permanente. And so we're an integrated healthcare system that is primarily out of California, but we're nationwide and approximately $100 billion company. Now, in that space, I run the Sarbanes-Oxley program. So I oversee internal controls for the organization and make sure that we can give the public a really good understanding that we have a really solid foundation in terms of accounting and finance because of the internal controls that we have in that space. Now, that's kind of what I do for work. Now, in my other job, which
because there's more than one.
Exactly, there's more than one. Is that I'm now chairman of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, but also chairman of the Association of chairman of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, which is the association. The association combines the AICPA and CIMA, which is the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. And so on a combined basis, those two organizations represent approximately 700,000 members across the world. And it's a pleasure and an honor, right, to be able to serve in that capacity and also being the first African-American male to serve in that capacity in our history of over 137-ish years.
Very good, very good. I'm struck by something you said about mentorship. Anecdotally, I was at your installation at Spring Council back in May, and it was a really special treat for us to see some of those people that you mentioned there that day when you were installed as chair.
Yeah.
What lessons did you take from them as you were going into that experience?
For me, it was just, it's hard to put into words, right? Because you feel a bit of, it's overwhelming. Right? Just because you understand the gravity. For me, this is so much more than me, in that moment, right? Because it's like there's so much history, right? And there's so many people who've come before me. Think of people like Frank Ross, who's the first president of the National Association of Public Accountants, and that George Wiley, right? Who really I've been watching my entire professional career, in that these individuals who could have been chairman of the AICPA at one point, but maybe we weren't as an organization ready, to be there. And so to be able to have individuals who have given their life in this profession to be there to support me, and I truly stand on their shoulders. It's just the gravity of that. It's hard to put into words, but it's one of those things where you have a huge sense of responsibility that you need to really make this count, and so that individuals can see what is possible, right, for the younger generation, but also for people who were waiting for this day to happen. And so I'm trying to do as much as I can, be as impactful as I can during this year term, but also knowing that there will be more beyond that.
So, one of the things that is pervasive in this professional community is just the conversation around interest in the CPA credential. I think we would all agree that we're seeing things wane a little bit. What do you have to say to graduates and new professionals who don't see the value in becoming a CPA?
Well, I would tell you that, and I would say directly that I'm very bullish on our profession. I would think that there's a lot of opportunity in that in this profession, you can do many things. We were just earlier this morning talking with a group of students, and when one of the students was actually coming up, they were in high school, they talked about how back when there was the 2008, 2009, issues with the financial crisis, how they knew that accountants had a job, didn't know what accountants really did, but they were working, right, in spite of. And so the fact that there's so many opportunities, whether you want to be an internal auditor, you want to be a CFO, you want to be a government auditor, you want to be in a big firm, you want to be in a small firm, you want to start your own business. There's so many opportunities. You can be a SOX leader, right? It's compliance. There's a lot of different spaces where you can play a role, and it's just depending on what you want to do. So you don't have to feel like there's only one path or limited paths to go into, and that it can be a springboard into other professions and other things that you might have interest in doing. So I think it's really important that you think of it not as, well, I'm going to be going in, I'm going to be working a ton of hours, and because there's so much more to this profession than that. And once you have your CPA, that's something no one can take away from you, unless you do something really stupid. Right? so hopefully we don't experience
none
that.
of that.
Right? But if you go the right course, you're going to be absolutely fine, and you're going to find that there's going to be immense opportunities for you to do a lot of amazing things. And I'm very excited about the profession, what the opportunities available to us.
That's great. I think that's a message that we can't say enough to young people, new professionals, even high school students. Your path is not linear. There's going to be opportunities for you to reinvent yourself multiple times over.
Agreed.
You just have to make the leap and say that you're going to pursue the credential.
Exactly right.
Right.
Geoffrey, I would throw in the CGMA as well, right? Because people in the business and industry side, while the CPA is really focused on, I would say it's public, it's private as well, but now you're seeing the CGMA, which is the Chartered Global Management Accountant, that it's really more focused on truly, business and industry, and to help you be the best, financial internal type of accountant. And that's also giving a lot of opportunity as well. And we're seeing a lot of interest in that space as well. So just want to
another great reminder of the range of opportunities that are available to somebody by choosing a career in accounting.
Right.
One of the areas that I feel like doesn't get enough attention, and I would argue that it's the next frontier of pipeline, is talent retention. As we're thinking about the future, what advice do you have for us as we focus on keeping our best and brightest in the profession?
And I appreciate you asking that, because what I do find that we've had a lot of conversation about those who are entering the profession, or keeping the interest there, but to your point, not as much on how do you retain those who are here. And there are people who are saying, I don't want to necessarily do this anymore. There's a lot of focus on, the regulations, right? Whether it's from, SEC or PCOB, and people are saying, well, I don't necessarily want to do, SEC reporting because of all the things that may come with that. And so what I believe is that we have to keep helping people understand that the value and the quality of what we do is critically important, but also that we need to continue to innovate in terms of the work that we do, how we do our work, because the younger generation, they're interested in doing many different things. And I believe that there are those who are kind of in the middle of their career who are also looking at, I don't want to do things just the way that they've always been done. I think that there are new opportunities. There's generative AI, there's robotic process automation. There's a lot of ways that we can take call it more mundane or routine things out of the process to leverage the skill sets that we really do need of people to think broadly about issues, or how they can navigate complex issues, whether it's with a client or whether it's with you being part of a business or an organization. There's a lot of things that are on the front with respect to ESG, so environmental, social, and governance. that those are really hit to the topics of people who are kind of the millennial, and I would say even I'll say the early stage of Generation X, that they want to be more impactful in the work that they do. So if we can help have them spend more time in those areas that they're more interested in, it's going to be much better than just, well, I'm going to do the way that my father did or the way that my mom did. We would continue to have to evolve how we work and do the work that we do.
Yeah, and I just picked up on two things you said: meaning and impact.
Yes.
I think those are two of the sources to a really great career, especially in accounting.
Correct.
And two pieces where I think, as a profession, we have an opportunity to really control the experiences that our people are having. And I think that's a good way to make the relationship sticky, more connected, and keep some of our best and brightest. As we think about the perception of poor work-life balance, because that's one area that people continually cite to us as they're thinking about looking for opportunities outside of public accounting, outside of careers in the CPA world. And it's a barrier for people that are thinking about entering the profession. You've managed to be very successful while still being a family man, involved in your community, involved in the profession. How have you been able to juggle it all?
What I've tried to do is work-life integration. And so I want to give some examples of that. So I don't try to have this, in a sense, perfectly viewed life because it just isn't. I mean, if you look at my year this year, I mean, based on my travels, that I've been all over the place.
It's making me tired.
Right. And, I'm so grateful, to my wife and kids that they're, really supporting me in this effort. But it is a lot because I also still have my full-time day job. So it's a matter of being where I need to be present, when I need to be there, to make sure that people feel that I'm engaged in what I need to do, but also being able to just juggle all these different things. Right? And so it's a lot, honestly, and it's not balanced, right now. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like when I think about over like my career, but also just life in general, I haven't missed a lot of things that were really important to me or my kids. Right, my wife having the various activities that she's wanted to be involved in, which is always she's the CEO of the home. Right, I mean, even though she has her own job and everything, but she's CEO of the home, and so I'm where I need to be when I need to be there, and that's what's also most important to me. I mean, I was telling even your team, I'm literally going to be studying with my son for his first accounting final, later on tonight. Wow. Right, and so but I'm here in Chicago. Right, so you just figure out how do I make these things balance.
Very good. As someone who is a leader in your professional organization, Kaiser Permanente, how have you tried to help push that down to the people that report to you in terms of supporting that work-life balance, work-life integration for the people that report to them?
Well, so the first thing is that I don't expect them to you're on the clock. You're an exempt employee. I want to make sure that if you're involved or you have an interest in being involved in organizations, that I'm a light to that. Right, I think it's important for you to be involved in community activities. It's part of our own mission. Right? We want to be involved in the communities that we serve. Well, to do that, you're going to have to give some time to be involved in things that matter to you. So doing that as an example, I believe gives them the permission to know that, hey, I can do this too, because what Okorie is exhibiting. Right. So, and then in terms of their work, really, I mean, you may have a child that you're working with, you may have a pet that you need to spend time with, whatever that thing is for you. I want to make sure that you feel like you can do that and not feel like you have to make that up. Right? I know when I was coming up at times, especially when I was in my public accounting days, I felt that I might work, and then if I wanted to be my kid's soccer coach, that I needed to come back and make that up. Well, in this environment that I work in now, and I've been here, almost 15 years, I've been able to be my kid's coach, and I didn't have to come back and make it up, later in that evening. But there have been times where something's on fire, and I need to be involved in that, and there's going to be a longer day. I might miss dinner that night, right? But at the same time, I've been able to, balance those things to make sure that, again, I'm where I need to be, and that, again, it's not ever going to be perfectly balanced, but it feels right to me, in that my team knows that that's kind of the expectation I have from them. Be where you need to be when you need to be there, and that's all that matters.
Very good, very good. So my takeaway from that is that it's not an either-or decision. You can have a successful career, you can be there for your family, and you can make an impact in your community if you're very intentional about it and set up the structure to make it happen.
I love that word.
We've been emphasizing the profession's DEI-focused needs to go beyond race and gender. Mm-hmm. What do you think needs to be done to make the profession more welcoming, inclusive, accessible, and equitable for all?
Well, so two words that come to mind for me is one, the word you use, equitable, and then also intentional. Right? And so on the equity piece, sometimes people would say, "Oh, well, I treat everyone equally." But that means that I don't necessarily see you, right? And so if I'm treating you equitably, then I understand your circumstances and your needs, and I'm catering to that, right? And so I believe that we have to be intentional about making sure that we're creating more seats at the table for people to have an opportunity. I actually spent some time checking out your board, right? And so I see you've got business and industry, you've got gender, you've got age. You have a really great cross section of what I feel like we need in our profession. Probably, and I believe we're getting there. We made a lot of strides, but we can't rest on our laurels. We have to continue to have that focus. And I believe the Impact Group, which your actual current chair sits on that, it's important that we really stay involved and focused on how do we look at pipeline, how do we look at looking at the diversity and equity inclusion efforts that we have as a profession, and that as we continue to see the changes, which I look at you as part of as well, because I see you, I see AJ Johnson, and then we also have Calvin Harris, right? As three relatively new CEOs of state societies, you're making your impact just by the physical presence, but also the work that you do. And so if we can continue to do that and just broaden the reach, we'll create those opportunities and people will feel more included. And then I would just ask that, and if you have teams, like let's say if you're on a project and it's pretty homogeneous, you've got some work to do, right? Because that means that you're not being intentional about creating opportunities for others to be at the table. Think about that for special projects as well. If you're business and industry, when you're thinking about an acquisition or a disposition or something major that's happening in the organization, do you have a diverse looking team? Because that best and brightest doesn't come in one shape. We got to continue to have that focus on how do we, again, be intentional about thinking about those opportunities for people. And if we do that, we'll start to see the change.
Very good. What advice would you have for a young professional, maybe a student that comes from a diverse background as they're thinking about entering the field and they have that knowledge that they may be one among many versus seeing a lot of people that look like them?
Well, the first is that you can't be afraid to or understand that the individuals within the firm that may be your best mentors, your sponsors, they likely will not necessarily look like you, right? And that there's going to be some work that will be done on both sides of the organization or the firm in terms of looking out and making people feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves, but also for that individual to not feel like, well, because I am one of only a few that I don't necessarily fit in. We were talking a bit earlier about imposter syndrome. Many people have that. I know that I've had it at times in my career where I like, do I know enough? Do I belong in this environment? Are there people who inspire me? People who passed the exam and I didn't? Right? That you have to kind of put those fears to the side, take a deep breath, and keep focusing, and know that at some point you're going to get that light bulb. I challenge people to test me now. I know what I'm talking about now. So it does eventually come, right? But you have to be willing to give yourself some grace to say that it's not going to be. I'm not going to understand it all. In that people who are around me don't necessarily expect me to understand it all, but they do expect me to keep trying and to keep the focus and to ask questions. Don't assume things. Don't give answers that you don't know the answers to. It's okay to say that I don't know, right? But I'm willing to find out, or I'm gonna or can you help me identify the resources where I can better understand this, right? So it's really being willing to give and understand that you're going to get so much more when that happens, and that we just all have to continue to do that. So, those are the things that I would say to focus on, is that just, again, give yourself grace, expect that you don't have to understand everything, work really hard, and then pay it forward and do that for someone else coming behind you.
I love it. And just be comfortable, sometimes being uncomfortable.
There you go. I love it.
All right. Let's keep rolling. We talk a lot about how public accounting is evolving for the future, and we need to look at the pace of change across the profession. What can you share about the evolution of the finance function in business and industry as someone who's made the leap?
Oh, yeah. Well, I would tell you that we talk a lot about generative AI and rapid process automation, some of the things that we're seeing that technological advances are helping us in terms of the way we do our work on the public side. but we're seeing that as well on business and industry. And so we have to continue to really look at for those opportunities to advance in that space. And I would say that public firms or companies that are working with those who are in business industry, how can you help us better understand that? We talk also a lot about what we call the T-shaped professional, where the stem of the T is really about the technical expertise, which has always been there, right? That we have to have those, we have to be tech savvy, we have to have the basic audit debits and credits we need to know, and just how to FASBs and all that. You need to have the technical piece. The top of the T is where we haven't always been as good at, making sense of data. Right, that we are, that you're a strategic or a creative thinker about things. How do you, really take large swaths of data and information and make it into, tangible information that people can make better business decisions? We've got to be better, at doing that, and that's something that we have historically taught in class. So that as we look at how we evolve the CPA exam, we're looking at those kinds of things and making it more practice related than theory. And so if we continue to do that, I believe that we'll see just better changes more broadly in terms of how we impact the business as space, but also how firms can also help us in that space as well.
We often talk a lot to young people about the meaning of a career in public accounting. Can you talk about the meaning and impact of having a career in business and industry?
Yeah, I would say that. So it depends on kind of where you start. So I started in public and then I went into business and industry. And I believe that gave me, I would say, an opportunity to kind of go in at a higher level, but also be more impactful. If you start in, a business industry environment, you kind of decide, what do I want to do? I mean, it gives you an opportunity. Like, I wouldn't say stay in the same place. You need to move around, learn the organization, be a student of the organization. The more that you're willing to do that and you learn and get into different areas, that can create a path to, a COO or CFO or maybe the CEO. I know for, what the organization I work with now that, unfortunately, our CEO, one of our CEOs passed away. He had been with the organization for over 30 years. Oh, wow. And he started like in parking for a healthcare organization, and he eventually became CEO of the organization. Wow. and a world global leader, right? And so, but it's about, I've got all these different experiences that I've been involved in, and I've rounded myself out. I think it's important that we not kind of think that it's a linear career. It's going to be about fits and starts and learning different things and making some mistakes along the way. But if you do that, you can have a really great and healthy career. But don't allow yourself to get pigeonholed and stuck in that I'm doing the same old thing for 20 years. You mentioned a bit earlier about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I use that all the time with our people. That if you're comfortable and you're just kind of sitting in the same space doing what feels good, you're in the wrong spot, right? Because you've outgrown that. You have to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to do this new thing because, well, it's a little scary. I may not know what I'm doing, but I'm going to get in there. I'm going to figure it out. And sometimes when people are willing to throw you in there and let you kind of sink or swim, well, start moving, right? Because it's to your advantage because you are uncomfortable at this moment. Yep. But when you get on the other side and you see what you did, you're like, wow. And now that's another feather in your cap of things that I know that I can do and make an impact.
Very good. Very good. As we're looking to the future and rounding this out, what do you see as the biggest challenges and also the biggest opportunities the profession will face in the next few years?
Well, I still believe that I'd be lying to you if I didn't think about the talent pipeline is still being challenged. I think that that's still something that we over the next few years are going to have to continue to focus on. Part of our national pipeline advisory group is looking at solutions to help us to broaden the pipeline of coming into the profession. So I think that's going to be part of it. Earlier point that you made about retaining our people. How do we continue to do work differently and be impactful, finding things that they're interested in and allowing maybe the younger set to ultimately bring their ideas forward. Just because we've done it in one way for a very long time and it's been successful doesn't mean that that's the only way it works. So there could be other ways that could be more profitable, more interesting if we're willing to take those shots. So we have to give space for it to be taken, and those who are coming up have to ultimately say, yeah, this is something I think we can do. I still believe that we have a lot of work to do in the technology space. that we need to look at how do we evolve the work that we do, how do we leverage innovation to really change some of the processes we have, again, business industry and in the public accounting space. Those are going to be things that will continue to hit. So if we continue our focus in these spaces, I do believe that we will continue to be as relevant as we are now, but we have never been more relevant. And we just got to continue to stay the focus. So again, very bullish on our profession. I think we have some great opportunities ahead of us and very excited to be involved in that process.
Thank you again for joining us this week here in Illinois. Thank you for your leadership and thank you for sharing thoughts with our audience. We really appreciate it.
It was great to be here with you, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yep.